It's a craft that few master. A skill that many miss out on. The art of living well.
Hey everyone, last year in 2019, does anyone remember with fondness the beautiful and carefree days of 2019? Anyway, last year in 2019, there was this social media trend known as the 10-year challenge. It could also be called How Hard Did Aging Hit You? And it simply involved people comparing pictures of themselves in 2009 to ones taken in 2019. And they put these pictures side by side to see what 10 years had done. Were they wrinklier? Were they fatter or balder? Or had they fared a little better than before? So social media sites often help us look back like this to the past, even in other ways. There's a feature called Time Hop, or On This Day, that will take you back to one of your posts 1 year ago, like you see me and Pastor Scott here, or 5 years ago, or here's what was going on in your life 8 years ago. And it's always fun to look at the past. But it's also one of the leading reasons that people get stuck in their lives. They keep thinking about their past and they stop thinking about their future. They fail to dream about what they want their life to be like. And so they don't time hop forward to picture what they might see 10 years from now. Like, what if the 10-year challenge was more about what do you want your life to look like in 10 years in the future versus what do you want to go back to 10 years ago? And then what do you need to do today to get you to that future picture? And so many times we let decisions of our past or present hijack the kind of life we want to live in the future. This is especially true in the area of money, because oftentimes we live as if today is all there is. And when we do that, we forfeit peace in the future. And so today we're in week 4 of our series called The Art of Living Well. And I want to preach a sermon today called Live Like Tomorrow Matters. The inspiration from this message came from our friends at LCBC Church, so thanks to them. But here's today's big idea. It's simply the peace we experience tomorrow will be shaped by the choices we make today. And this is true in a lot of areas of life, but we're going to apply it today specifically to the area of finances. And as we begin, I want to point out 2 barriers that tend to rob us of tomorrow's peace. And they have to do with our mindset. The first barrier is simply this. It's the need for now. The need for now. A couple weeks ago, we talked about the myth of more, and this is the need for now. Younger people are especially prone to this because you guys have grown up in a now society. Like if you send a text to a friend and you don't see bubbles immediately forming on your screen showing that they're responding, you're annoyed or worried. Or if you're watching a show on your streaming service or on YouTube, you want that next episode now, immediately. Like when I grew up, you watched one show and then you waited patiently for next week at the same bat time and same bat channel. And now you want it to roll immediately into that next episode. I want to click watch now. Or if you're ordering something from Amazon, like I want free shipping and I want it in 2 days. It would be better if it'd be here right now, like with one of those little delivery drones dropping it off on my porch. So we've been so conditioned by our need for now that it's become really difficult for so many people to actually think about tomorrow. When it comes to our money, a recent study shows that 74% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. That's 3 out of every 4 people living paycheck to paycheck. There's a need for now, and it robs us of thinking about the future. Now, for some of you, I understand that it's an accomplishment to actually do that. Like I know there are single parents with a college degree raising 3 or 4 kids, and no one's hiring in their field, and they're in a job that doesn't pay much, and you're actually doing pretty well just to put food on the table. And paycheck to paycheck is a win for you. I get that. And I don't want to heap guilt on so many people who really are working hard, sometimes 2 jobs. There's a lot of people in that category, but let's be really honest. The vast majority of people listening to this message don't have to live paycheck to paycheck. The problem is we have a today-centered mindset and a need for now that robs us of our peace tomorrow. But there's a second barrier to a peaceful future that I want you to see. It's highlighted in Proverbs 21:20, which says, "Precious treasure and oil are in a wise man's dwelling, but a foolish man devours it." Another translation says, the wise store up their food and oil, but the fool spends whatever he gets. The fool spends whatever he gets. There's no room to save. There's no room to invest because as fast as it comes in, it's being spent. And so if the first barrier was the need for now, let's call this second barrier the seduction of spending. And the truth is, most people run out of money before we run out of things we want to spend it on. Amen? And so, as we've been saying for the whole series, it's important for us to understand that God cares about our money. Actually, let's say it more correctly. God cares how we spend His money, the money He has given to us to manage, the small fortune that He has entrusted to us during this lifetime. Of course He cares. Just imagine, how you would feel if you gave money to someone to manage it for you. Wouldn't you care what they did with it? Proverbs 21:20 just told us that the wise store up for the future, but the fools spend it as fast as it comes in. It's the seduction of spending, and it actually robs your future self's peace. And I would venture to guess that there may be some of you listening today who have a little bit of a spending issue. And so I just want to identify what I believe are a few, maybe 6 kinds of unhealthy spenders, okay? Here's the first. It's the impulsive spender. So here's you. You went home 3 weeks ago when we started the series and you got serious about budgeting and you set up a financial plan and a rock solid budget and you got all excited about it. And 5 times since then, you found yourself scrolling through your favorite online retailer. You saw a deal that you just couldn't pass up. And so you just buy stuff impulsively. You're quickly convinced that there's something out there that you simply can't live without. And without thinking, without considering what you're doing, you just buy it. Click, boom, it's mine. That's impulsive spending. Second, there's the compulsive spender. So if you're a compulsive spender, you have some unmet need somewhere in your life. You might not even know what it is. But instead of determining what that need is and dealing with it, you do a defense mechanism thing and try to escape it all by spending money. So you shop when you're sad, you shop when you're lonely, you shop when you're angry, you shop when you feel happy as a celebration. Any emotion is an excuse to shop. And the answer truly is not shopping, it's some therapy probably. But it's a compulsive thing and it leads to bondage and not freedom. Here's the third unhealthy spender. It's the revenge spender. So these are those people who feel like, you've been good for your whole life, or you've been good for this whole season, or you really haven't spent any money through all of COVID, and look at all you've gone through. And so you just decide one day, you know what, I'm going to stop being good. And in one fell swoop, you blow your whole savings in a grand moment. Maybe you've been driving the same old beater car for 10 years, and you decide one day, you get so frustrated, you just say, I'm going to take revenge on that old car. I'm going to go out and buy a $70,000 SUV. That'll show it. Right? This is revenge spending. It is not healthy. Then you have 4, your boredom spender. Sometimes you just get bored with your life and there's only one solution in your mind: buy more stuff. And this one's really ridiculous when you think about it. There's never in the history of the planet been so many wonderful things to do with your time if you get bored. In fact, next time you're bored and tempted to go out and shop, shoot me an email. Grace Church absolutely loves people who are looking for something to do with their time. All right. 5th is the special interest spender. These are people who are pretty good with their spending in most areas of life, but there's that one particular thing, that one interest or hobby where you just lose your mind. You lose all control. It's your Achilles heel. And so maybe it's technology. You have to have the latest gadget or clothes or shoes or golf or cigars or antiques or collector's items. You just don't have one of those things. Like, you need all of them, the whole collection. And when you see that thing, you can justify buying it every single time. Finally, there's the status spender. This is the mentality that brings with it an eye that's constantly looking to see what everyone else is wearing and listening to and watching and driving and living in. And the mentality is, I've got to keep up with the Joneses. And I've said it many times, but I'll say it again. It's time for us to just declare the Joneses the winners and just move on with our life. Just say, it's over, Joneses. I don't need to keep up anymore. Take your victory lap. You win. Here's a gold medal. Let me hang it around your neck. You win the car game. You win the house game. You win the clothes game. You win the annual Christmas light contest. You win it all. And just be done with it. That's the status spender. And I wonder if any of you relate to any of these unhealthy spending patterns. The Bible says it's the difference between being wise and being foolish. And foolish people spend everything they have as quickly as it comes in. But the wise make it a point to store up some for tomorrow, to save, to invest, to think about the future, because tomorrow matters. And remember our big idea, the peace we experience tomorrow will be shaped by the choices we make today. And so I want us to look at a passage in Proverbs 6 through 8, and we're going to learn today from the ant. Listen to Proverbs 6. It says, "Go to the ant, O sluggard, consider her ways and be wise. Without having any chief, officer, or ruler, she prepares her bread in summer and gathers her food in harvest." All right, so the ant is our example. Now listen, I know these little creatures can be annoying and gross, and we spray around our house to get rid of them because they're crawling everywhere. But we really do just need to step back for a second and admire these little creatures. The reason that we have to work so hard to keep them out of our houses is because they're so darn persistent and strong, and there's a lot of them. Did you know that there are about 1 million ants for every one human on Earth? They can also lift like 50 times their own body weight, some of them much more than that. That would be like an average-sized dude being able to bench press 10,000 pounds. That's 5 tons. I mean, these little things are strong. But this passage points out another characteristic of the ant that makes them one of the most successful species on the planet at spreading themselves around and surviving. It's the way they prepare for winter. And so when cold air arrives, the ant's body temperature drops dramatically and their movements become sluggish. They respond to that by seeking out warm places in deep soil or under rocks or trees, but they prepare by eating and storing up large amounts of food in the summer and fall. It's why they're so persistent. I mean, you ever dropped a chip or something at a picnic, and before you know it, the ants are carrying off your food. Right? I know. Some of you are done with the ant pictures. That's the last one. But these are really incredible creatures. And according to this passage, they seem to know something we don't. You can predict what tomorrow will bring, but you can't predict what tomorrow will bring, but you can prepare for it. The ant works and stores all summer and fall. For what? For winter. And so Proverbs 6 is saying that there's something to be said for planning, for thinking about what you need to do today in order to experience peace tomorrow. So what do you need to do today in order to experience life tomorrow? Or maybe another way of saying it, prepare for winter financially. Now, for those of you who live in other parts of the country and the world who are watching online, you'll have to bear with me for just a moment while I talk to the people from Erie and from Northwest Pennsylvania, where our churches are located. Because if there's one thing we understand, it's winter. This is a biblical analogy that we can really get our minds around as one of the snowiest cities in the country. And this is the perfect time to talk about it, because here we are in mid-September. We've already had our first frost warning. We're making the move from t-shirts to sweatshirts. The air smells a little different. You notice the clouds look a little different. The color of the leaves is a little different. And if you listen really closely, you can hear high school marching bands in the distance. What does that mean? It means winter is coming. And so there's a sense in which we can predict winter. We know that it's coming. But there's also an unpredictable nature to it as well, because we don't know what day the first snow is going to come, and we don't know exactly how long it's going to last. It'll just be long, right? In fact, we have a saying around here that there are generally 2 seasons in Erie, winter and the 4th of July. and there are financial winters too. Some that we know are coming, and some that come as a surprise to us. And so let's talk about preparing for the surprises first. Sometimes financial winter is an emergency. So, for example, have you ever had a car breakdown? Have you ever had your hot water tank go down? Ever have kids that needed braces? That's an emergency winter kind of moment. Like you knew those things were possible, but you weren't expecting them to come when they did. Did you know that 63% of Americans reported in a recent survey that they don't have as much as $500 in a savings account in case of emergency? And we need to learn from the ant. The ant takes action today because it knows winter is coming. So what does that look like? Well, you have to be able to say no or say not yet to some things now in order to be prepared for winter emergencies. You have to stand strong against the need for now and the seduction of spending. And so one part of being prepared for winter are those unexpected storms. And one of the ways that we prepare for that is to have a savings account, what Dave Ramsey would call an emergency fund. So I ask, have you been working on saving up 3 to 6 months of living expenses for the emergency winter moments that life brings? I'm so thankful that our financial teams here at Grace have been diligent during the past 10 years about saving and building what we call reserve funds. We have reserves for all kinds of variety of different departments at Grace so that when something like COVID hits, yes, we may need to make some difficult decisions to position ourselves for the future, but we're never in panic mode because we have reserve funds established in case of emergency winter seasons. This is a wise practice, not just for a church, but for every single person. We need to learn from the ant. But here's the second kind of winter we need to prepare for. Not only is winter sometimes an emergency, but sometimes winter is actually a date on the calendar. Like there are seasons financially that we know are coming, and we generally know when. And so financially, winter is retirement. Like, you only have so many working years. And you have some sort of vision for what you'd like to do one day when you're done working. And so let me just throw out some numbers. The average household lives on $40,000 a year during retirement. The average Social Security check is about $17,000 per year. That's a $23,000 a year gap that needs to be made up some other way. Maybe the average 401k is about $100,000 in it. That's not going to do it. And so let's get practical. How are you going to make up that gap? And there are lots of ways to plan for retirement. I want to remind you of 3 decisions that will help you to plan for that financial winter. First, I already mentioned this is the decision to save. Like last week, I said that one of the starting points is to take full advantage of any company-sponsored savings plan that your employer offers. Like the majority of millionaires built their wealth and margin through their company-sponsored plan. And so I told the story of a 23-year-old young woman earning $40,000 a year who made one decision to max out her contribution to the company retirement savings plan. And without ever getting a raise for her whole career, she would still end up with millions of dollars for retirement. Second is a decision to eliminate debt. Again, 2 weeks ago, we talked about eliminating debt. But this decision will also free you up for a wise future. For those of you more mature folks who think that you're too old to do anything about this, listen, it doesn't have to all start in your 20s. So imagine with me a 55-year-old couple who decide to eliminate their debt, including their home mortgage. And they just say, we're going to eliminate it all by the time we retire at age 66. One decision. Whatever it takes, they said, we're going to get rid of that debt. And by focusing all their effort on that one thing, they lowered how much it cost them to live every month in retirement from $5,000 to $2,500. Cut expenses in half so that their nest egg could last twice as long. So they made up the gap by eliminating their debt. But there's a third option. A third decision is the decision to invest. So take another person who decided to invest in rental homes beginning at age 40. And they managed to purchase and pay off 25 of them by age 70. With an average rent of about $500 per month, which is low, but her investments would be delivering up to $12,500 a month in gross income. Plus the homes are worth a combined total of $2 million. So just one decision to embrace the awkwardness of learning the rental investment business changed the trajectory of her retirement. My wife Kim and I, early in our marriage, decided to make real estate our investment strategy. And so we actually purchased our first home and never lived in it. We actually lived in a tiny apartment, in fact, 4 or 5 tiny little apartments, while we put our money to work by paying for a house that we never lived in. We just rented it out. And if you're into the stock market, that's another way to do it. We could never figure the stock market out. In fact, I recently saw somebody said that the stock market is simply a graph of rich guys' feelings, which, to be honest, kind of feels about all the sense I can make of it right now. But Kim and I made the decision back then in real estate because we realized that when tomorrow matters, it changes what we do today. And here's the thing about investing. Money plus time plus consistency equals wealth. It's how it happens. It's the old story about a father offering his 2 daughters a choice between, he said, you can either take $1 million or I'll give you this 1 penny, and the 1 penny will double in value every day for a month. So the penny would become 2 pennies on day 2 and 4 pennies on day 3 and 8 and 16 and so on. Who would end up with more at the end of the month? Well, in our need for now, many people would take the $1 million. But it's not even close. The daughter who took the $1 million might be happy, but the one who took a chance on the penny, she would, by the end of that month, have over $5 million. One of them experienced the power of addition, but the second had the power of multiplication, investment. In fact, $5,368,709.12 to be exact. But I want to refer you again to the website we've set up over at whoisgrace.com/theartoflivingwell. There are so many tools there that can help you. We've highlighted this week some savings and investing tools, and I would just really encourage you to take the step of checking those resources out on that website. You know, I've talked before, just kind of from a big picture standpoint, about a simple formula that captures what I believe represents God's design for financial management. Now, this isn't perfect or absolute, but at least it puts some specifics on what can be a very confusing subject. It's just called the 10-10-80 plan. It just means give the first 10% of your income away in generosity to your local church. Put the next 10% in savings or investing in the future. That's what we're talking about today. And then live on the other 80%. And for some of you, that feels like a huge insurmountable formula. For others, you could do that tomorrow if you just made the decision to be intentional about this area of your life. But remember our text today. The ant prepares her bread in the summer and gathers her food in the harvest. So you can experience peace tomorrow based on the choices you make today. And so let me just wrap things up today by talking for a moment about what will it take? Like, what kind of character qualities will it take to make today's decisions that will set me up for tomorrow? I want to talk about 3 today choices that will lead to tomorrow peace. And the first is just self-control. It's going to take self-control. And self-control is a fruit of the Spirit. It's evidence of the Spirit's work in your life. Last week, we talked about it as the difference between deciding and sliding, between making a conscious choice about what you want to do and taking the time to measure the pros and cons and then acting intentionally, or just sliding, just kind of floating through life, reacting as life comes to you for 40 years, and then all of a sudden you're old and broke. And so self-control is the ability to push back on the temptations that come with the need for now and the seduction of spending. I think the parable of the talents, where Jesus tells the story of the owner of an estate, who leaves his resources in the hands of his 3 servants, 2 of whom are rewarded when the master returns. And they're the ones who demonstrated self-discipline and self-control. Jesus says that the man who received 5 bags of gold, he went at once. And guess what he did? In Matthew 25, it says, he put his money to work and he gained 5 bags more. In other words, when God trusts you with something, you have a choice of what you can do with it. And what many people do is they spend it all. It takes self-control to put your money to work and to think about tomorrow instead of today. That's the first choice, self-control. Here's the second choice. It's selflessness. Like, your willingness to live today as if tomorrow matters is an act of selflessness. Being prepared for financial winters is an act of selflessness. Because do you know who benefits most when you've prepared today for a winter that will come tomorrow? It's the people you care about the most. The people closest to you will benefit. So if you're young or single or you're seeking to be married someday, have you ever considered the gift that you are giving to your future spouse, who you may not even know right now? But because you're living today as if tomorrow matters and not taking thousands of dollars of debt into your marriage, ask any married couple here if that would have been a gift to them to start their marriage debt-free. Every one of them will tell you yes. Have you ever considered what a gift that it is to the people closest to you, to have margin one day, to travel and to see your kids and grandkids when they've moved away, because you made choices today like that day matters? Or have you considered what a gift it is to your family when you need a new transmission that doesn't cause a knockdown, drag-out fight because you were not prepared? And you know where the money's coming from to fix it, and so you can deal with it. What a gift that is to the people we love. Our passage today in Proverbs 6 goes on in verses 9 through 11, and it says this. It says, "How long will you lie there, you sluggard? When will you get up from your sleep? A little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will come on you like a thief, and scarcity like an armed man." I like the word sluggard. Can I be honest with you? So how long will you lie there, you sluggard? I believe that this is proof that Solomon, the author here, had teenagers. Anyone ever say that sentence to your kids? Anyway, this is such a powerful imagery. He's saying, if you're lazy now, like if you're not thinking about your future now, if you're not taking selfless action now, you're going to pay for it down the road. And he compares the lack of resources in your future that comes from a lack of planning and preparation. He compares them to a thief, to an armed man. He's saying that your future will be robbed from you almost at gunpoint because of today's choices. And it's going to come as a surprise to you because you'll still be just coasting along like nothing's wrong. And then boom, that robbery happens. And I'm here to tell you that there's nothing as heartbreaking as to watch someone who's willing to trade away their future for today. Whether it's a habit or drug use or health issues or financial choices. It's like being pounced on by a robber who takes everything from you. Let me say it this way. It's possible for a future you to be held hostage by today you. And it's your opportunities then that will be robbed. Opportunities in the future to say yes to God's leading because you're not bound up. Opportunities to give extravagantly. Opportunities to explore a new line of work. For some of you today, you need to go home after this and begin to ask, where do I want to be in the next 10 years? Where do I want to be in the next 20 years or 30 years? And then begin to make decisions today so that the future you is not held hostage by the today you. And so the today choices that we can make for tomorrow's peace involve self-control, they involve selflessness, and here's the third today choice. It's surrender. You know, about 1,000 years after Solomon explored these ideas in the book of Proverbs, Jesus came along and he pushed them further. And he said these strong words in Matthew 6:24. He said, no one can serve two masters. For either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You can't serve both God and money. He said, listen, as important as all these financial decisions are, in the end, you can't serve two masters. You can't be possessed by two things. There can only be one owner. And though we need to be wise with our money, it can never rule over us because the primary issue isn't the money. The primary issue is your heart. It's who do you surrender to as the owner of all of it. And ultimately, the tomorrow that really matters is not the tomorrow of retirement. It's the tomorrow of eternity. Like if you don't settle that, the retirement part doesn't matter. And when we live today and spend our money as if today is all there is, when we succumb to what we talked about earlier, the need for now and the seduction of spending, listen, it will own you. You may never have thought about it that way, but it has become your master. It's robbing you. It's holding your future hostage. And it doesn't have to be that way. And the invitation of Jesus is to say, I'm not going to let how I live and how I spend today rob me of my peace tomorrow. You see, to seek first his kingdom and to live righteously just means to align ourselves with who he created us to be, to follow him wherever he leads, including how we handle our money. And I want to be really clear about something. Our greatest hope for you as a church is not that you would be wealthy. It's not that you would be debt-free or to be set for the winter of your life because you've saved your money or invested wisely. Those things are great and important and they show wisdom. But what we want most for you is to experience the truth of Jesus' words. And I want you to discover for yourself what so many others at Grace have discovered, that God can be trusted in every area of life, including how we manage our finances. That his ways are good. And that's not something that you can just only know with your head. It's something that I promise you can fully experience with your whole life. And the key is surrender. And surrender gets a bad rap, but the kind of surrender I'm talking about is not giving up. This kind of surrender is simply an admission. It's just saying, okay, I need God in my life. Like I need a change in leadership in my life. I need to acknowledge my brokenness and my waywardness. I need to acknowledge my hopelessness and my need for a savior. Some of you don't know if your future is secure. And I want you to know that God loves you, that he wants a relationship with you, that he's here right now to forgive you and to give you a whole new lease on life. Way beyond the financial mess some of you are in, you're in a spiritual mess. Your soul is broken. You need Jesus. And he was very clear when he came that nobody was born a Christian. He said, you have to be born again. You have to come to him and say, Lord, I'm a sinner. I believe you died for me. You're the Savior. Please come and forgive me of all my sins. And he would love to do that for you. He would love to cover you with his grace and his mercy, just like he's done for millions of others throughout history. There are a bunch of prodigals listening to my voice today. And man, if that's you, I want to urge you to take a simple but profoundly important step, to take a step of faith. It's just to take out your phone or device and to text the word New Life to 94090. Do it today. Fill out the little short form that we'll send you, and we'll get some resources to you and a person to help walk you along your way with Christ, and to begin reorienting your life, not around the temporary happiness, but around eternal joy. It's time to build your life on the right foundation and to find true and lasting peace for tomorrow. If that's you, take that step today. Love you guys. God bless.